Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Kofer, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, How Academic Libraries Are Bringing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to Their Campuses, which is sponsored by OverDrive Professional. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few features of the webinar software. So all the attendees who join the presentation are automatically muted and your cameras are off. So don't worry about generating any noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. We're using the Q&A feature today. Please use it to ask questions of our presenters. We do expect many questions and we'll likely not have time to get to all of them. So we apologize in advance for that. But that being said, we'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. So please do type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you throughout the presentation. Also note that there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Also note that we're recording today's program, and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the archive version. And with that, we're ready to get started. So I'll pass things over to Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our session today. We're very happy to have you all here and excited to have you be part of our discussion on how academic libraries are bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion to their campuses. Let me make sure I'm changing the slide here correctly. There we go. Apologies. So to introduce myself, my name is Jeff Cola and I'm from OverDrive. I'm the account manager for all of our college and university academic libraries, including all of our accounts here in the States, but also internationally. And as you see here, I want to introduce all of our presenters. As you may have heard, first, Christina Machado Dillon from Miami-Dade College. We also have Becky Yamamoto from University of California, Irvine. And also very excited to be joined by my colleague, Ariel Marbury, who is also an account manager here with OverDrive, specifically working with our libraries, but she will be leading our conversation today. Just a little bit about today's agenda. First will be, I will give a little bit, a brief introduction about OverDrive and our department, OverDrive Professional. Then we'll be getting into our roundtable discussion featuring Christina, Becky, and Ariel. And then lastly, we will go over a little bit how we can help. All of us are willing to help and want to help you out with your collection or filling in any gaps that you might see. But again, we will give a little brief Q&A and then summarize how OverDrive can help. And just a little bit about OverDrive. Even if you're not a current customer of ours, there's a good chance you know about OverDrive through your own public library. Maybe you're already used to borrowing ebooks and audiobooks from our award-winning app called Libby. And as you can see from some of the stats on the screen, we're very proud of our wide reach. We have thousands of libraries, colleges, corporations, and specialty libraries all partnering with us throughout the world as we're striving each day for a world enlightened by reading. And here at OverDrive, we've seen the impact and realized the importance of building a diverse collection for our users, and understand this can mean different things to different people. So this is why we are very excited for this opportunity to bring minds together and for everyone to hear the great things that we have going on, specifically with two of our academic partners. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, I will pass it over to Ariel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, I will be the moderator for today's discussion, and I'm super excited to have you all with us. Before we dive into the first question, I know we did brief introductions when we did a sound check earlier, but I'd love for Christina and Becky to tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we'll dive into the first question. Let's see. Christina, maybe did you want to start us off?
Sure. So as I said, my name is Christina Dillon. I am one of the librarians at Miami-Dade College. I'm over in Hialeah, Florida. So we have a very diverse community here, both around us and also our student body is very diverse. And, you know, I work with collection development, I want to say mostly, but we're also helping students one-on-one. So we want to make sure we have all of the right materials to support them. And our relationship with OverDrive, I actually joined the team working with collection development for OverDrive, I want to say maybe a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. And so far it's been a great partnership, and we've been able to provide a lot of materials to students, especially during the pandemic.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Turn over to Becky.
Hi, everyone. My name is Becky Yamamoto. I am the head of collection strategies at the University of California in Irvine. That's in Southern California. I think I've been in this position for about 5 or 6 years, and I've always been really interested in DEI collections. So I'm interested in presenting that today, while also feeling just, you know, slightly nervous that I have that imposter syndrome about this topic, because it's such a big and important one. So I'm hoping that we have a good discussion today in the Q&A, and that I get to learn a lot from you as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we can dive into our questions. So the first one, tell us a bit about your campus. Who do you serve? What are some of your goals?
Okay, I guess I can start so at Miami-Dade College, we do have, like I mentioned, a very diverse student population. We do have 167 nations and 63 different languages represented within our student body. And we've been around since 1960. Since then, we've grown, and we have 8 campuses and various outreach centers throughout the city. So, you know, we're constantly adapting our libraries to meet those academic needs of the students, faculty, and staff. And our sole purpose or goal is to help students achieve academic success. And at the same time, we, I guess we just try to match the collection to the specific campus and the academic needs of that campus. Each one is a little bit different, so sometimes it is a challenge, but you know, we're constantly learning and finding new ways of doing this.
Okay, I can go. I just wanted to start off with a land acknowledgement that the UCI libraries and our campuses are located on the homelands of the Hashima and Tongva peoples, who in the face of ongoing settler colonialism continue to claim their place and act as stewards of their ancestral lands as they have for the past 8,000 years. We acknowledge our presence on their traditional territory, and we respectfully honor and recognize the original and current caretakers of this land, water, and air. So for us, I put up our mascot just because it's kind of quirky. We are the anteaters, so maybe you can remember me by like, oh yeah, that weird one. We have a population of about 37,000 for enrollment, 35% of which are Asian Pacific Islander. That's our largest group. And then 26% come from underrepresented groups such as African Americans, Hispanic, and Native American students. We are also almost 50% first generation and have 19% international students. So we are pretty diverse.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. What makes a diverse collection? on your campus. And let's start off. We can start off with Christina, if you would.
Sure. So we're just starting to look at our at the diversity in our collection. So I actually had to, search a little bit to find what that means to us as a whole. But I did want to just read off one of the learning outcomes for Miami-Dade College, because I think that kind of like is our guiding goal for this. But one of our learning outcomes is to provide multiple varied and intentional learning experiences to facilitate the acquisition of fundamental knowledge and skills and the development of attitudes that foster effective citizenship and lifelong learning. And through the academic disciplines and co-curricular activities, we hope to achieve this. A key component is that graduates will be able to demonstrate knowledge of diverse cultures, including global and historical perspectives. So that's kind of like our guiding principle for learning resources for the libraries as well. And we really hope, or at least my opinion, and we do, and I know a few other librarians, share this idea as well. We do hope to have a collection that's diverse enough that the students can kind of basically see themselves represented within the collection. So not only, we don't want to only meet their academic needs, but also, introduce them to reading, introduce them to all the wonderful stories that are available, the different perspectives, and in that way also achieve this goal.
Yeah, I'll go. Thank you. So what makes a diverse collection is definitely something that we're working towards. I would never say that we are 100% there, but our goal is to build intentional collections that recognize, value, and embrace diverse experiences and multiple identities. And this is not limited to, but includes race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, ability, culture, language, geographic origin, religion, and age. And just like what Christina said, it's just, we certainly are striving to have collections that represent our diverse community that we have here and their experiences. We want students to not only see themselves represented, or excuse me, I should say not just students, but everyone represented, but we also want them to then learn about other people's experiences as well. There is certainly more than one narrative that has traditionally been the default of the Western white straight male perspective, and we definitely are working towards building that out in different areas. It's something that I think you really have to have that mindset, because if you're just sort of letting approval plans going through and ordering on requests, you can kind of get into a little bit of a rut. And you need to be able to remind yourself every now and then that no, we need to do more and work in this area.
Great, thank you so much. How does diversity in a collection reflect your institution's mission?
So the Miami-Dade College, the mission statement is to change lives through accessible, high quality teaching and learning experiences. And the college really embraces its responsibility to serve as an economic, cultural, and civic leader for the advancement of our diverse global community. And to that end, the library discipline at Miami-Dade College also believes that responsiveness to our diverse college community is an essential part of that service, of our service. And our library's collection should reflect a wide range of perspectives and voices. So, besides supporting students in their academic journey, this is a very big component of our mission, of our goal and purpose for everything that we do, is to help build these next leaders and make sure that they're contributing in part of that global community.
So at UC Irvine, I'm sure like many of you, there are different groups on campuses that are working on these issues. We have an Office of Inclusive Excellence, and a part of the main charge to campus is to dismantle the systemic barriers of racism and discrimination found in higher education and our broader communities. We have stipulated our values on campus are to expect equity, support diversity, practice inclusion, and honor free speech. So at the library, I've put up part on that slide is our diversity statement and plan. And on that page, it talks about how we are working to build and make available outstanding collections representing the wide variety of human knowledge, ideas, and research. The libraries are in full alignment with campus in advancing our commitment to excellence through diversity by creating a learning community grounded in knowledge, open inquiry, dialogue, respect, and inclusion. So our campus has a mission with some pillars, and then we have this Office of Inclusion statement, and we've worked to make our strategic goals and our mission in alignment with that for diversity.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before I get into the next question, I would like to put a call out to our attendees to participate in our poll. So have you ever done an audit on a section of your collection? I'll give it a second for everyone to chime in. And then we'll turn it over to our panelists. Awesome. Okay, so 33% of our attendees today said yes, and 67% said no. So I'm super excited today that we'll talk a little bit more about audits later in the presentation. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to see how do you go about auditing your digital collection?
Okay, I think I'm up first. We have done some different audits that I'll get to, I think, in a later question. I wanted to focus this one on the audit that you can get through OverDrive. I attended Digipalooza this year for the first time in August. If you haven't gone, I recommend it for next year. And was at a presentation where Todd Warhola at OverDrive explained the diversity audit. And so I was like, hey, I want one of those. So I wrote to Jeff here and said, this is cool. I like this. The purpose of an audit is it takes inventory of what you have, and it helps determine exactly what's in your collection and what areas you might need to develop more. So there's a picture on the screen that shows one of the pages of a snapshot of what you can get in this diversity audit, and this shows unique titles owned in a diversity category. But there are other pages as well, talking about the different audience levels, content inventory, language, how many diverse award winners books you have. So this was really helpful to me. I mean, our collection isn't huge in OverDrive. It's a little over 1,000 titles, but it really was able to give me just this quick image of where we are and where I could be going. I knew this, but it was also just super helpful to see it right up front is our foreign language collection in OverDrive. It represents 1% of the collection. It is very small. It's definitely something that I need to work on. It hasn't been used much, but of course there's only a few titles. So, people probably are looking for things and not finding it and leaving it. So that's on me. I need to find some good lists out there, I think, for bestsellers in some foreign language from different countries. And what also was really clear to me was that the diversity award winners, they will list all the different awards and the percentage that are owned and not owned in the collection. And there were many that 100% were unowned. And at best, we had maybe 15% of the books that were from a particular award. We do have these books in print, and we have them classified in Primo in our catalog in a way that they're easy to find. But I think it's something that I need to think about and look at more closely is, should I duplicate this because this is in a format that a lot of our patrons prefer and are looking for material in. So that was the audit from Digitapalooza, or excuse me, from OverDrive. But briefly, two other things that have come up that I've noticed is, well, basically is who are making the requests. I'm the person that gets the recommendations in OverDrive, and it's not really, well, I guess you could consider it diversity, is our campus staff have been very involved in asking for books. And I have no way to compare it to maybe their involvement previously in the library, but I just don't think it was something that we were super focused in on. We were more of like, you know, academic needs, what students need for their courses and research versus what our staff are wanting to read on campus. And I think this has just been a great way, having OverDrive to increase our awareness and engagement with that group of people. And with that, I'll turn it over.
So, you know, our path to this was very similar. I also attended Digitapalooza, and during one of the presentations, it was about DEI, and that's what started getting me thinking. And I was like, you know, I really don't know what our collection looks like, because we do rely pretty heavily on user recommendations with OverDrive. We want to make sure we're getting what, you know, our population wants to read. So that's kind of like guided the collection development a lot. And then of course, buying some, you know, award winners and the bestsellers, things like that too. But that was the first time I was like, let me look into this a little bit more. And same thing, reached out to Jeff and got our diversity audit. And it was pretty eye-opening. We're doing really well in some areas, but there's definitely others that we have to improve. And I'll go into those details in a little bit. But we also wanted to make sure that, you know, the diversity of our collection isn't just based on, you know, race or culture, that we were also looking at so many of the other aspects that Becky mentioned, such as, you know, ability and gender diversity, neurodevelopmental, things like that. And that's something that the audit is really good at providing a good kind of snapshot of what our OverDrive collection looks like. So from this experience and this kind of process, we're hoping to then now, you know, apply it to our physical collection as well, especially during the pandemic. You know, our collection development for our physical collection, you know, halted. I'm sure a number of other libraries, same situation. But our digital collection, we were able to continue to grow that one. We did see an increase in recommendations and requests because, you know, that was kind of like the only place to go to. But the word has gotten out. We have gotten a lot more faculty and staff recommending titles as well, not only for themselves, but for their students and for their class as well, to create reading lists. So it's definitely growing, and it's not meeting just the I guess like leisure reading needs of our students and faculty and staff, but also the academic ones now as well.
Awesome. I'm super excited to hear that there are so many different stakeholders on the campuses engaging in that process. That's really neat. Okay, data collection analysis, the fun stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
All right, so these are again just little snapshots of our audit. It's a little bit it's much lengthier than this, but I did want to highlight these two. One of they're so tiny, I'm sorry. One of them there is looking at our let me pull it up, I'm so sorry. One of them is looking at the collection based on the title, the diverse list that Becky mentioned before. So this one's actually really helpful because it's showing us from those diverse lists, and they're all listed there. There's Black authors and characters, LGBTQIA A plus authors and characters, Coretta Scott King. There's just so many there, and we're able to see where we're doing really well and where we need to improve. So this was really kind of eye-opening. I didn't realize we were doing so well in some of these areas, but we definitely have to switch gears and look at some of these other areas as well now. And then the other one is actually looking at unique titles owned in a diversity category. So rather than looking at the list, this is just looking at the categories themselves. And again, this is also giving us kind of direction as well on what our next steps are going to be. I don't know if there's one of the images that I also had here was looking at the diverse list and the proportion of those lists that we actually own or are unowned. So this is actually really great because I'm able to see what lists, including diverse awards, are out there and how much of those collections are owned and how much more there is available from just these book lists and award winners that I can just kind of like tap into and build up those collections. So I thought that was, the diversity audit was, I think, very, very helpful in illustrating that for us. And our next steps with this audit is definitely to kind of get together with the team of librarians that's working on OverDrive and start reviewing some of these resources, start deciding which areas we want to tackle first, probably creating a timeline so that we can get this done, hopefully, or at least start addressing it relatively soon. And then, yeah, we'll probably kind of apply a lot of this to our physical collection.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys a little story, a history of how this went down for us and what analysis and data I was able to get from it. We went live with OverDrive in October of 2019. Our initial plan was that this was just to dip our toes in the water. We were thinking of adding, maybe 100 books a year. It was really just going to be an enhancement of our browsing fiction print collection that we have. So it was a nice slow rollout. It was fine. And then, of course, the pandemic came, and at the end of May 2020, when many of us woke up and realized our country has some serious, serious problems, I created a collection in OverDrive, like I'm sure many of you have done with your library collections. Mine was Understanding and Combating Racism. There are about 50 books in that collection, but we actually sent out a notice to all UCI employees and students on June 3rd. And the UCI chancellor followed up with a message that included that. The Office of Inclusive Excellence put it on their website, and it became part of the reading list for a Black Thriving Initiative on campus. So basically, up till then, I was kind of looking at holds every now and then and just being like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is how things are going. And it blew up. It became crazy. I'd had like 30 or 40 loans on a book, or holds, excuse me. And coming from always an academic library mentality, this is not something that we're used to or like, handle easily, I think, as a public library would do. So I did have to sort of adjust my mindset and my comfort zone about how many copies of materials or titles we were gonna have. And of course, with that, I also had to commit significantly more money. So in the end, I think, I had to buy maybe about 130 copies of some of the books that are in this collection, but it is heavily used. So I do check for data collection analysis. I look at the checkouts and the holds, the last checkout date. All this information is very important. And not only, I think, are we providing a great service to our community who wants to read these books and not have to wait weeks and weeks to do so, but it's also just, of course, provided a much greater awareness of OverDrive in general. And so my weekly report that I get of the book recommendations has skyrocketed from just creating this one collection to, of course, asking for books on all different types of topics. I have found in doing my analysis that when I create a collection that's for a particular month, like Asian Pacific Islander Month or Women's History. Right now we have Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's being publicized on our homepage, and it's Disability Awareness Month. But I've noticed that it actually even helps, I think, to further break it down. Sometimes I'll do like a collection that's nonfiction books on that topic, or books written by an African-American author, or fiction books that feature an LGBTQ character. And when I get more specific like that, even though the collections become smaller in size, you know, we might only have 3 or 4 books on that topic, that it seems that that focused really does help people find what they're looking for, and the usage has been pretty good for those ones. Just to be perfectly honest, and because I want to share all of our information to help you guys, I also look, I think an important stat is books that have 0 circs that have been in the collection for, you know, a certain amount of time. I made a collection for Earth Day, sad, that just didn't seem to take off. People were not really interested in the books I selected for that one. We also have a series here on our campus where we kind of use that ALA poster with the read. You know, your person will take a picture with one of their favorite books. We do that with our medical, our doctors over at the Med Center, and they're posted up there. So I was asked to buy a copy of all of their favorite books. And while they didn't pick like super academic tome-like things, their choices just have not resonated with the rest of the campus as much. So I did want to mention that. And finally, again, this doesn't really have to do as much with diversity, but for just in terms of collection analysis, I had no idea how obsessed our undergraduate student population was with young adult fantasy novels, series in particular. These are things that I don't know if pre-pandemic we were collecting a lot in. Actually, I'm pretty sure we weren't. It's just not something that's part of our collection development policy. And we've certainly been a lot more open about things that we've been willing to buy during the pandemic, and that is just crazy. So if you're looking to get stuff that your undergraduates want, young adult fantasy series, you can't go wrong. Okay, so I will stop there.
Thank you. That is very interesting. So things are forever evolving. And so you mentioned some of the, Becky, you mentioned some of your past projects, but are there any other notable past projects that you want to highlight as well?
Sure, I'll go, and then Christina can. These are things we've done in the past, and I don't want to take up too much time, but potentially they could be of interest to you. If anyone wants to follow up with me later, I'd be happy to go into more detail. But at the start of this fiscal year, we did add 17 new publishers to our approval plan with Gobi. We worked with them to identify some smaller niche presses that we weren't really looking at beforehand, and I'm hoping that that will pay off. We do, so this is more marketing, but for our physical book displays, we certainly try to have diversity as one of the main topics. But what has been really interesting is we've opened up our book displays to either classes, if a professor wants to make it a class assignment where students have to work together to find books and create short descriptions of them and put it together. Like a Chicano Latino class did one about labor. That was really great. And we've also opened it up to student groups. There is a student group on campus called Feminist Illuminati, and they created a great collection about our books. on that topic. Some other projects we've done, I'm stealing this from someone, I'm sorry, they called it a reverse diversity audit, where you take some kind of list that's already been compiled, like a book award list or a current bibliography, and you see what you have. One example, our drama librarian looked at LGBTQ plays, and in the bibliography, there were like about 450 plays that were mentioned. He went through, we had about 42%, and he looked at the CERC data and did all that stuff too. But a significant portion of those that we even owned did not have any subject headings, and let alone a subject heading that identified as being a part of LGBTQ, having that as a subject. So that was a really interesting project. We bought new plays out of it. We added better cataloging, and we identified some new publishers that we wanted to include. And he also created a web page with something called Tag Packer, which allows patrons to be able to go through and look at our plays that are in our collection, and you can sort based on demographics. Like, I'm looking for a play with characters of this ethnicity, or from an author of this nationality, sexuality, you know, and I want 8 females. It's pretty great for that. Real quick, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too long, but something I also looked at was the age of our print collection. If you can run lots of reports on that. I specifically looked at 3 different call number areas, E184 to 185, you know, ethnic studies, 2 in the HQs, the sexuality section, and women's studies. And I just looked to see, like, from what decade were all of our books coming from. When did we add most? It made sense. I think one thing that I did notice is that we had a lot of pretty dated materials in the HQ 1 to 499 from the 1960s, which, you know, some of it might still be relevant, but really that's not where we want. We don't want people looking at just only at books published in the 1960s on human sexuality. Obviously, a lot has changed. So we learned to beef up that collection. And then finally, one other project that I did, which was very time consuming, but I evaluated our interlibrary loan requests. I took all of them. I ran them through Gobi's ISBN search. I did that because I needed to be able to get the subject headings, which were not included on our normal interlibrary loan reports. And through lots of data cleanup and all that, which I won't get into here though, once I looked at the subject headings and factoring in the same, if it was for the same title or not. But interestingly enough, I would have no idea. Feminist theory was our #1 requested subject heading, so for MOOCs we didn't have. Then human geography, knowledge theory of, and then law school admission test study guides. So that was really interesting for us, and was information I was able to share with our subject librarians and saying, hey, these are areas that we need to, you know, our patrons want, and we need to work on getting more material in. And with that, I will turn it over.
Thanks, Becky. Those are really interesting projects. I'm like gathering ideas for our own audits here. So 2 things I kind of wanted to mention about how, I guess how we address diversity in our collection. We try to highlight, just like Becky said, we try to highlight our niche collections and, you know, even bigger collections as well, in line with holidays, celebrations, any initiatives that might be going on at the college, things like that. So we tie those things in so that we, you know, have a reason to promote them, not only internally, like within the library, but also outside of our department, by tying it into, again, a celebration that the whole college is celebrating, or an initiative that we're all supporting, something like that. And a lot of times when we're building up those curated lists on OverDrive to again support these things, that's almost like our opportunity to analyze the collection and you know, build it up if it's lacking. A lot of times, you know, we've looked at creating lists for, like Becky mentioned, you know, Hispanic Heritage Month this month, Disability Awareness Month. We've looked at Native American Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month, things like that have given us the opportunity to look at our collection and make sure we have enough titles to support, any events going on campus, any interests that the students might have in reading titles that fit this. So in that way, we've been kind of building up the collection to make sure it's a little bit more diverse. We've had a number of grants that have also helped us with that. We recently had the International Read and Change, and that one was during International Education Month. And what it did was readers of all ages were able to commemorate books written by international authors or written about international themes to promote global education. So as it was mentioned before, we're not just looking at titles that are diverse because it's labeled that or that's the sole topic in it. We're also looking at any titles that have characters that might fit that description, or if it's written by a certain type of author, things like that. So we're looking at different ways of promoting a variety of different titles in the collection, in support of these different events and celebrations. So besides that, using the curated lists as a reason to look at our collection and analyze it, month to month or every few weeks, there's also been a few instances that we've been able to really address certain things in the collection, certain areas that we've been lacking in. One of them has actually been our children's collection. And this is kind of interesting. We have a staff member here at Learning Resources who was actually studying and recently graduated with her master's in Library and Information Sciences. And I believe it was one of her assignments was to address a certain section of the collection for wherever it might be lacking in diversity. And she chose the children's collection. And what she specifically looked at was a few different key aspects of it. She looked at African American youth, Native American literatures for youth, Latino Caribbean American literature, Asian Pacific American or Middle Eastern, LGBT spectrum. I believe it was also autism spectrum and disability experience and religious diversity. So looking at all of that, we were able to go ahead and with her input, build up the collection to include titles specifically tied to these themes. So our children's collection has gotten so much better, and I'm hoping to now do the same thing with her, but looking at our OverDrive collection. Not so much children's books, but maybe young adult, which is also very popular here. And that's going to be one of our next steps. Another big project that we worked on here and really helped us analyze our collection, it was a little bit of a process. So it actually started with Black History Month. One of our fellow librarians was on the committee to support that celebration. And she had to look at the collection and really see if we had enough to support the different events and initiatives that were going on campus that month. And so that was kind of like the first step. So after that, we started, making sure we were taking a look at the collection every year to make sure it was up to date. But then with the Black Lives Matter movement, we took it a step further. There was a LibGuide that was created, and it listed so many resources, and we wanted to make sure that OverDrive had some resources to, be included in the library guide and support all the different professors that were teaching and discussing this in their classrooms. So once we started looking at that, most recently, I think it was last year, we found numerous new titles that were published and available through OverDrive on anti-racism, the history and politics around race, the significance of Juneteenth, and a few other topics. And we were able to add them to collection, again, build a curated list, promote that list, and so much more usage came from that. And we're seeing that so many more professors and faculty are also coming to OverDrive to find those resources. So those are a few different projects that we've worked on in the past that's helped us analyze our collection for diversity, and which we'll continue to do so. But we do have a few next steps, I guess, where we want to take this kind of like a step further and do it, be a little bit more purposeful in doing it and not just like reacting to a celebration coming and having to get something ready. But we'll discuss that in a minute.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a great segue, because the next thing that I want to talk about is next steps. So what are some next steps for your libraries?
I'll go. Sorry, I don't think we had selected that, but with the collections department that I oversee, we had a retreat this summer, our first time we saw each other in a year and a half in person. And we sat down and we said, what kind of diversity audits do we want to work on this year together? And it really is, it's like that Goldilocks conundrum, because academic libraries are huge. There's no way you can do a great audit of your entire collection and get any useful information. But you don't want it to be too small that it doesn't tell you anything. So you have to find the one that's just right. And then of course you have to figure out, well, what's something that you have data for as well. Because if it's something that you're like, I want to know how many of our books in this call number range were written by females. That's not data that's easily available, and you'd have to look at individually and be making assumptions that you don't want to be making. So what we're still working on, but we've kind of narrowed down the list, is looking at maybe we still have a DDA program, what was purchased from that. So, what was triggered for purchase by our patrons versus what was available, just to kind of get a sense of that. I'm interested in some of our streaming media packages, just because streaming media has just taken off in the last year. Like many other collections, just for ease, we buy things or we subscribe to a top 500 list of movies, which is great, but then we're not selecting those movies. And are they all, Hollywood movies by a white male? How many characters or actors are in it that are diverse? So that's something that I kind of want to do some analysis on and see where we can make improvements. And then just kind of looking also at our approval plans and what they're bringing in. We last year looked at and actually focused in on, we created a LibGuide specifically about DEI films, where we picked out and we had themes for different months that was very popular on campus. And it was nice because it actually involved lots of people in the library. So we're trying to figure out what can we do this year that will involve a wider range of people. So we're thinking of doing something, another type of reverse diversity audit, where we pick a topic. Right now, we're really thinking about Native Americans, where we know probably across the board, our collection isn't great, but this means it could involve, Native Americans in water, Native Americans in public health, lots of different areas, so that we can and just get engagement from all the subject librarians on that. So I'm going to be trying to lead that project. And basically, I think what Christina said is it's really nice, and I like our Heritage Month collections that we do and that we publicize, but those are definitely more of your easy expression of appreciation and saying, look at these great things. And it's just a starting off point. We really need to get more into that difficult work of critically evaluating what we have and what our way we can contribute to better DEI success in our collections. So that's our plans this year. Stay tuned.
So for us, we've also, I think, realized that we need to do a little bit better with all of this. So the library discipline has actually chosen one of their goals to be to advance efforts toward cultivating inclusive, equitable library collections. So to that end, we've made a little bit of a subcommittee And we're going to be going to some trainings, I think this month actually, from the Library Journal and School Library Journals. I'm sorry, it's their online course, and it's an interactive workshop. It's titled Evaluating, Evaluating, Auditing, and Diversifying Your Collections. And we're hoping to, get a little bit more information and training on how to evaluate different parts of our collection, kind of develop a timeline and a plan for all of this, and then be able to share that knowledge then with the rest of the librarians, so that, in everything that we do in all of our collection development efforts, there's kind of like this filter that we're applying as well, and looking at it through, I guess, through this lens instead, so that, we're actively addressing this, but then also have this bigger project going on, this bigger goal that will probably extend for a few years, I would assume, to really improve our collection and make sure it's as inclusive as possible.
Great, thank you so much. These previous projects and next steps are super exciting. And with 77% of our participants not having participated in an audit, there's a huge opportunity here. And so I am going to turn things over to my colleague, Jeff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Becky, Christina. That was amazing. I really love hearing all the information. Again, being able to kind of summarize it with some next steps, along with some of the things that you've done in the past. And I think I hit on it earlier, but it's something that's going to continue to grow and evolve. But we love to hear what has been going on so far. So thank you, Ariel. If you don't mind going back just one slide, but just want to highlight a couple different things, because I know the audience minds are kind of turning and gears are turning right now on different things that they might be able to do. And hopefully I answer a couple questions with what I'm about to highlight here. But first I want to talk about our resource center. For those who are partners already, you've probably seen how much information is in there, including marketing materials, how-to videos, so on and so forth. But I want to point out that we do have a book recommendations list on there. So that is always being refreshed, where we highlight title lists, including popular titles, bestsellers. And of course, on there right now is our selection of popular DEI titles. So if that's something you'd like to view as a partner, go ahead and do so in the Resource Center or reach out to me. If it's something you'd like to view who's not a partner currently with us, just let us know. The next slide will be some contact information, and you'll be able to contact us at the email on there. Another thing that I want to bring up, I know Becky talked about a little bit, maybe Christina as well, but different types of databases and streaming media. So it's not always about the ebooks and audiobooks. There's other ways that we can fit these DEI titles or topics into our collections. One of the things that you can find more information about in our resource center is the other types of databases and streaming media that we have. One that comes to mind is IndieFlix, a diverse collection of filmmakers who really do a great job of sparking those conversations, which could be on your campus. Again, important topics, trending topics that they do a great job of with their filmmaking. And lastly, I want to highlight that diversity audit that both our partners had brought up. This is something that, again, if you're an existing customer, please, you can reach out directly to me. My email will be on the next slide here. And again, this is going to be something that's going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to be something that is important for us to communicate and help out all of our academic libraries with. So even if you're not an existing partner, just know that's going to be available. It's going to continue to grow and build as all of this does. So again, here's all of our contact information. All of us would love to discuss these matters further with you and see what we can do to help. If you are someone looking for more information regarding OverDrive in general, that professional@overdrive.com email is there for you, and we will definitely get you set up with the appropriate sales rep on our side. So just want to say thank you. I think we might have a couple minutes here for some Q&A, but thank you ACRL and our presenters who did an excellent job, and Ariel moderating this conversation. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff. So I have questions that I will say, and whoever wants to take it can just have at it. So the first one, have you ever scaled up a collection audit to determine the diversity of your holdings with that of a consortia that you may be a member institution?
Not really. We did use Green Glass a few years ago, which is a OCLC product to help with a major weed and move shifting that we had in our libraries. And in that, there is a different benchmarks that you can look at if a book is somewhere. And one of them is your consortia. So that was certainly very helpful in making decisions like that. And it probably would have been good data to start with for looking at diversity if I had been thinking about that back at the time when I had access to that data. We don't have it anymore, it's outdated. But besides that, no. And it's probably something that I should be doing.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Let's grab another one. How frequently should an academic library conduct a collection audit?
Well, for us, I mean, we've done so many. Well, we've done a few. I shouldn't say so many, but they've all been different. So I feel like we're almost constantly thinking about a diversity audit, just of a different part of the collection. And we have not gone back to redo, an audit that we had originally done, which would probably make sense to look at actually improvement. So that's a very interesting question and something I need to think about more. But it'd be great maybe in another next summer to do the diversity audit with OverDrive again and work on a comparison.
Yeah, same for us. We I think it would be a really good idea to develop a plan and have that as something we look at, like you said, maybe every summer or so. But right now we haven't, as far as I know, we haven't done a diversity audit on our like our physical collection. I think this OverDrive one is the first that I've seen. But that's why we're attending this training, and it's one of our goals now so that it can be part of the plan going forward.
Great, thank you. We've got a few more minutes here. So let's see. How would you evaluate your DEI representation across all content, not just OverDrive? And what are your best practices for incorporating more diverse content in your collections?
I'm not sure if that question can be answered in a minute. And I feel like we sort of did cover some of that, but you're right. Okay, besides OverDrive, how do you look at diversity across all formats? We are struggling with that. And as I think I mentioned in just the future projects, what we've been trying to do is find manageable parts of our collection that can be done. We've not attempted anything overview. I mean, I don't know, we have 4.4 million volumes. It just doesn't seem feasible. So for us, it's taking chunks and breaking it out and looking at that. So.
We have time for one more. I'm always impressed by the non-English language ebooks and OverDrive, which are often not even available for libraries in the countries they're published. For any of the speakers, how important is language in bringing diversity to collections?
We've been trying to incorporate other like foreign language titles into our physical collection. And recently I think I've been trying to do the same with OverDrive whenever like especially for Hispanic Heritage Month, I guess. I tried to get some titles that were already in Spanish, and I haven't done a report or anything to see what the usage looks like for those, but from the student population that I interact with on the day-to-day, it is something that they would be interested in. I just have to probably do a little bit more of a study of whether an ebook is really the best method for them to read a foreign language title, or if they really prefer the book in their hands. But that's definitely something that we're looking at, because our first goal was to make sure that our collection was kind of balanced between ebooks and audiobooks. And I think now we're starting to incorporate more of the foreign language titles as well. But I want to say that if the usage isn't too high, it's probably because of the barriers of using the technology. And that just falls on us to better educate our students on how to use it, how to download titles and so forth. But it's definitely something that we're looking at and we're interested in building.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Jeff now. We don't have any time for more questions, but thank you all so much. I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah, thank you so much again. Our contact information is on there, and we're very willing and excited to help everyone out. And I believe Sabrina might be taking over now. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much to Jeff, Ariel, Becky, and Christina. This is Sabrina Kofer from Choice and ACRL. So thank you all for presenting today. It's a really useful and valuable discussion. I'd like to remind our viewers that we recorded today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Choice and ACRL with a link to the recording. Also, if you have a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey, we would really appreciate it. Your responses make our presentations better. So thanks again to all of you out there for joining us today. I hope you learned a little bit from the session, and we hope to see you again in the future on another webinar.